I brought her flowers to work, and instead, I watched her get into his car. It was a Thursday, late April, the kind of day where spring is pretending to be summer, warm breeze, sun flickering through the trees. I remember that because everything else about that morning was so painfully ordinary. Until it wasn't. Her favorite flowers were white lilies. Always had been. I picked them up on the way, wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. The florist gave me a knowing smile, the kind reserved for husbands still in love after more than a decade. I didn't tell her I was just dropping by my wife's office because she'd seemed off lately, distant, cold even when she smiled. But I smiled back. Emma worked at a design firm downtown. Sleek glass building, modern lobby. I'd never surprised her there before. Maybe that was part of it. I thought maybe if I brought the lilies, just showed up like we used to, it would thaw something between us. Remind her that we used to laugh just to hear each other. I parked across the street. Waited. Watched. First, I didn't see her. Just people in business casual filtering out for lunch, holding phones, laughing, unlocking cars. Then I saw her. Emma. Hair pinned up. That burgundy coat I bought her last Christmas. She looked calm, not rushed, not flustered, like she had nowhere else to be. And then he pulled up. A charcoal gray BMW, tinted windows, passenger door swung open like a queue, and she stepped in without looking back. The lilies crushed in my hand before I even noticed I was gripping them. I didn't follow. I sat there, engine idling, traffic moving around me, people honking when I didn't take the green light. My hand was shaking, not with rage, not yet, just confusion, the kind that makes everything feel slowed down, like the world's buffering. They didn't see me. I watched the BMW signal right and melt into the lane. She wasn't kidnapped, wasn't coerced. She smiled when she got in. Not the smile she gives our daughter. Not the smile I used to get. It was a new one, and I had no idea who it belonged to. That night, I didn't say anything. I put the lilies in the trash on my way in. Emma was already home, in the kitchen, sautéing something that smelled like rosemary and butter. She greeted me with a kiss, a soft one, habitual. "How was work?" she asked. I lied. "So busy." "You?" She smiled. "The usual." I watched her stir the pan like nothing had changed, like my whole axis hadn't just shifted. And I wondered, how many nights like this had there been, where she came home full from another life and smiled at me like we were still real. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe, and I knew something was broken, something I hadn't noticed cracking. The next morning, I checked her phone. It was still on the nightstand, right where she always left it. Charging overnight, screen dim, quiet. I hesitated, my hand hovering above it like it might burn me. We never went through each other's phones. Not in 15 years. It was an unspoken agreement, a form of trust. But now, that trust felt like a story we used to tell ourselves before bed. Fairy tale. Her alarm buzzed. I jumped. She stirred, rolled toward me, and gave a sleepy smile. "You're up early," she mumbled. "Couldn't sleep," I said. She nodded and drifted back into silence. A moment later, the water ran in the bathroom. I took my chance. Opened the phone. No password. Emma never changed it. Not once. Text messages. Mostly group chats with coworkers. Some messages from a woman named Lauren, school updates, wine night plans. All normal. Almost too normal. Until I found a thread named L. That was it. Just the initial. Last message was from 2 nights ago. "Thursday can't come soon enough. I miss your hands." My mouth went dry. I scrolled. Not far, most of the messages were deleted. But enough remained. Enough to see the pattern. "Don't wear that coat. Too obvious." "Same place. I dreamed about you last night." I locked the phone. Set it back on the nightstand. The water shut off. She came out wrapped in a towel, cheeks pink, hair damp. She smiled again. "You okay?" "Yeah, just tired." She didn't press. She never did. I watched her walk into the closet. And I didn't know who I was more furious with, her Or myself. I used to know her. Every flicker of her smile, every shift in her voice. Now, all I saw was a stranger wearing my wife's skin. That day at work, I stared at spreadsheets without seeing a single number. My assistant asked if I was sick. I told her I was fine. I wasn't. By 3 p.m., I was sitting in the car again, across from her office, watching. Like the day before, people streamed in and out, laughing, alive. I waited. At 3:46 p.m., the BMW arrived. Same car, same parking spot, like clockwork. This time, she came out faster. Different coat, no hesitation. She kissed him. Not a long kiss, not movie-worthy, but it was there. Her hand on his chest, his on her waist, like it was normal, like they'd done it 1,000 times. And then they drove off. I didn't follow, not yet, but I knew what I had to do next. I hired a stranger to follow my wife, because I couldn't trust the woman sleeping beside me. His name was Elliot, mid-40s, soft voice, wore a Red Sox cap and drove a rust-colored sedan that blended into traffic like a ghost. He didn't ask questions, just listened as I told him what I needed. Photos, license plate, hotel names if there are any. He just nodded and said, "I'll be discreet." That word haunted me. Discreet. It meant Elliot had done this before, that other men had sat in his cracked leather passenger seat, hands trembling, eyes hollowed out with questions they didn't want answers to. I wondered how many marriages he'd watched unravel from a safe distance. I gave him the details. Emma's schedule, her car, the man's vehicle. I didn't know his name, just the BMW. Charcoal gray, no plates in front, always on time. "I'll find him," Elliot said. I didn't know what that meant, exactly, but I nodded. The next 3 days were a quiet kind of agony. Emma moved through the house like a dancer in a well-rehearsed play. She laughed with our daughter, texted during dinner, folded laundry with a podcast in her ears. She kissed me goodnight. She didn't know I was watching her differently, studying the small gaps between her movements, her quiet moments, the pauses where something used to be. She didn't notice me waking up at 2 a.m., heart pounding, certain that I'd hear her whispering from the hallway. But there was only silence. On Saturday morning, Elliot texted. She met him at the Shoreline Inn, room 214. He stayed 2 hours. Check your email. I didn't open the photos right away. I stared at my phone so long the screen dimmed. My finger hovered over the mail icon, but I couldn't bring myself to press it, because once I did, everything would become real. Later, in the garage, I clicked. The images weren't explicit, but they didn't need to be. Emma getting out of her car, fixing her hair in the side mirror, glancing at her reflection. Then the man, tall, clean-cut, wearing a blazer and jeans. They walked into the side entrance, 5 feet apart. Room 214. The timestamp was from Friday at 3:51 p.m. 20 minutes after she texted me, "Long meeting. I'll be late. Love you." That night, I looked at her hands as she set the table, wondered how many lies they typed, how many apologies they were preparing. "Do you want to watch something after dinner?" she asked, handing me a glass of wine. "Maybe," I said, "not sure I'm in the mood." She nodded. No questions, no concern. Our daughter told a story about a boy at school who brought a snake in his backpack. Emma laughed. Her eyes sparkled, and I hated how beautiful she looked in that moment. I hated that I still loved her. At 10:12 p.m., I checked my email again. New message from Elliot. Ran the plates. His name is Daniel Whitaker. Works in real estate. No marriage license filed. Nothing suspicious. Unless you count everything. Daniel. I didn't recognize the name, but I'd remember the face. Elliot sent a close-up, a zoomed-in frame from one of the hotel images. Daniel, smiling slightly, head turned toward Emma. His hand was brushing hers. She didn't pull away. The next morning was Sunday. Emma made pancakes. "I was thinking we should go out next weekend," she said. "Just us. It's been a while." I didn't answer. She looked at me, spatula midair. You okay? I nodded. Yeah, just tired. That was becoming my favorite lie. She flipped the pancake. We could try that winery you like. Sure. My voice sounded like someone else's. I stared at her back as she reached for a plate. Thought about room 214. The name Daniel Whitaker. The smile she gave him. And for the first time since it started, I didn't feel sad. I felt cold. And I knew what had to happen next. I started keeping a journal. Not to make sense of things, but to remember who I was before she broke me. Every night, after the lights went out and her breathing softened beside me, I'd open my notebook and write. Not just what happened that day. Not just the lies I caught or the looks I tried not to notice. But memories. Real ones. The way she used to run barefoot in the backyard, chasing our daughter with a garden hose. The way she fell asleep on road trips with her mouth slightly open. The first time she said she loved me, drunk on cheap wine and honesty. I wrote them down because they didn't feel like hers anymore. They felt like they belonged to a man who no longer existed. That Monday I called in sick. Emma kissed me on the forehead before leaving. She smelled like lavender and something sweeter I couldn't name. Rest, okay? I nodded. Be safe. I watched her pull out of the driveway. Then I followed her. I kept 2 car lengths back. She drove like she always did. A little fast, music probably playing low. At the last intersection before her office, she turned right. That wasn't the way to work. She didn't slow, didn't hesitate, just drove like she'd taken that route 100 times. 10 minutes later, she pulled into a coffee shop parking lot on a quiet corner in Eastview. Not a chain. One of those boutique places with paper straws and people who say notes of citrus about lattes. He was already there. Daniel. He stood by her car door before she even opened it. Reached out. Took her hand like he owned it. They didn't kiss. Not this time. But it didn't matter. She smiled at him. The way she used to smile at me when we were still new. When she still chose me every morning. They sat outside. I stayed in the car, window cracked. My breath fogged the glass. I wiped it clean with my sleeve every few minutes, afraid to miss something. They talked, laughed. She leaned in when he spoke. At one point, he reached across the table and brushed something from her cheek, and she didn't flinch. The whole thing lasted maybe 20 minutes. Then he walked her to her car, opened the door like some goddamn gentleman, and stood there until she drove away. She didn't see me when she passed. Or maybe she did, and looked right through me. That night, I printed the photos, laid them out on the table in the garage, one by one, like evidence. Emma smiling, Daniel reaching for her hand, the hotel door, the timestamp. I stared at them until the garage felt too quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just existed, like a man watching the movie of his own life and knowing the ending already. Later that night, I tucked our daughter in. She asked if I was okay. You look tired, Daddy. I kissed her forehead. I am, sweetheart. She curled up with her stuffed fox and closed her eyes. And I thought, how many more lies will I have to tell her before this is over? Back in our bedroom, Emma was reading. She looked up, smiled. Long day. I nodded. Yeah. She went back to her book. I went to the bathroom, and I stared at myself in the mirror until I didn't recognize the man looking back. Something had to break, and I wasn't sure it wasn't going to be me. The first time I said her name out loud, the other man's. She froze like I'd struck her. It was Wednesday night. We'd just finished dinner. Our daughter was in the living room, watching some animated movie she'd seen a dozen times. Emma was rinsing plates at the sink. I was drying them mechanically, one by one. Daniel Whitaker, I said. She dropped the plate. It hit the sink hard and cracked down the center. She didn't even look at it. For 3 full seconds, she didn't move. Then she turned her head, slowly, eyes wide, mouth parted. Not guilt, not yet, just fear. What? She whispered. I didn't repeat it. You know who that is? She shook her head, too fast. I don't. Don't lie to me, I said quietly. Emma opened her mouth, closed it. I wiped my hands and stepped back. Tell me the truth. She leaned against the counter, her breath hitched. For the first time in weeks, I saw her without the mask. She looked tired, older, human. "Who is he?" I asked again. She didn't answer, just one tear, down her cheek, then another. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said. "That was all. And I swear to God." That sentence made something inside me collapse. We didn't yell. There were no slammed doors. No broken glasses or threats or names screamed into the night. Just two people standing in a quiet kitchen, finally facing the truth they'd both been avoiding. "I want to understand," I said. Emma nodded slowly, but she didn't speak. "I deserve that much, after everything." She wiped her face. Her hands shook. "It started 6 months ago," she said. "He came into the office. Client. Nothing unusual." I didn't interrupt. He was kind, funny. He noticed things I forgot mattered. The way I dress, the way I talk. "You and I," she stopped herself. "We've just been stuck, like we're roommates sometimes. And that justifies this?" "No, nothing justifies it." She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw the guilt behind her eyes. Not shame, not regret, but genuine guilt. The kind that can't be washed away by apologies. I didn't expect it to go that far. I thought it would fade, that I'd come to my senses. But every time I saw him, she trailed off. "Did you love him?" Silence. That was my answer. We didn't speak much the rest of that night. I slept on the couch. Our daughter asked why. "Dad just had a sore back," Emma told her the next morning. More lies. The strange. How quickly reality can unravel. One minute, you're a husband making pancakes on Sunday. The next, you're just a man occupying space in a house that doesn't feel like home. At work, I couldn't focus. At home, I couldn't breathe. And then came the question that had been scratching at the back of my mind for days. Was it still happening? I needed to know. That Friday, I met with Elliot again. He handed me a manila folder. He didn't say much, just gave me a look, one I understood. Inside were more photos. From the day before. Emma, Daniel, not at a hotel this time. Park, sitting on a bench, holding hands, like a couple, like they didn't owe the world a single ounce of shame. There was one picture that gutted me more than the rest. She was laughing, head tilted back, eyes closed, and I realized I hadn't seen her laugh like that in months, maybe longer. That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, counting seconds between the house creaking and my own heartbeat, wondering how I got here. What was I supposed to do? Tell our daughter? Call a lawyer? Pack a bag? I felt paralyzed, caught between who I used to be and who I'd have to become if I wanted to survive this. And in that stillness, I made a quiet promise. Tomorrow I'd decide. Not out of anger, not out of fear, but out of clarity. Because if I didn't, I'd lose myself completely. I didn't tell her I was leaving. I just started taking myself out of the picture, one piece at a time. The photo of us in Venice? I packed it. My shaving kit? Gone from the bathroom by Tuesday. The books she never read, but I kept on the shelf to feel like we still shared something, all boxed up. She noticed. Of course she did. "Have you been reorganizing?" she asked one evening. "A little," I said. She didn't press. I think part of her already knew. But if she asked, then I'd answer. And she wasn't ready to hear the truth aloud yet. Neither was I. We started moving around each other like ghosts. Polite, civil, careful not to touch unless our daughter was watching. And she always watched. She was too young to understand the details, but old enough to feel the tension. That's the thing about kids, they don't need explanations. They feel everything in the silence between words. One night, she asked, "Are you and Mommy mad at each other?" I froze. Emma came in, sat beside her and said, "No, sweetheart, we're just tired lately." More lies, piled gently like pillows, and I let it slide, because the truth would have split her little world in half. I visited a lawyer that week, not for divorce, not yet, just to understand my options. His name was Robert Grayson. Clean office, Firm handshake. No bullshit. I'm not here to destroy her, I said. He nodded. You're here to protect yourself. That's smart. We talked finances, custody, property, timeline. He told me things I wasn't ready to hear. Words like mediation and equitable distribution and shared holidays. I thanked him, paid in cash, didn't set a second appointment. Not yet, but I walked out of that office knowing exactly how to disappear if I had to. That Friday, Emma came home early. I was in the garage, wiping down the shelves, pretending I was fixing something that wasn't broken. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Her eyes were rimmed red. We need to talk, she said. I put the cloth down, nodded. She closed the door gently behind her. I ended it, she said. With Daniel. It's over. I said nothing. I told him not to contact me again. I blocked his number. I deleted everything. Still, I didn't speak. She took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I thought you should know. I looked at her then, really looked, and I believed her. I didn't want to, but I did. You ended it for you, I said. Not for me. She flinched. And I can't pretend this didn't happen. I know. I can't unknow what I know. I know, she whispered. We stood in the stillness of the garage, dust in the air, the smell of oil and wood and a life we built together. I don't hate you, I said. She nodded. Tears fell. But I don't trust you either. I understand. I don't know if that can come back. I'll wait, she said, and I almost laughed, because we both knew waiting wouldn't fix it. You can't wait your way back into someone's heart, especially when you're the one who broke it. That night, I slept in our bed. We didn't touch, didn't speak, but the silence between us felt different. Not full of secrets, just the quiet after a storm. But calm isn't peace, and I wasn't sure yet if I was staying. She started making coffee for both of us again. That was the first sign she was trying. 2 mugs on the counter. Mine always the navy blue one, hers the white. Cream, 1 sugar. I never told her how I take it. She just remembered. Funny how love lives in the small details, and how betrayal poisons them. The coffee tasted the same, but now every sip came with the question. Is this guilt, or love, or both? Weeks passed. Emma was consistent, present. She didn't text as much, didn't disappear in the afternoons. She was careful with her time, with her words. She cooked more, reached for my hand sometimes, watched me like she was afraid I'd vanish if she blinked too long. And part of me softened. That's the worst part. When someone breaks you, and you still want to be near them. Not out of weakness, out of history, out of that stubborn voice inside that whispers, maybe people really do change. One evening, after our daughter went to bed, I found her sitting on the back steps. She was in that old hoodie I thought she threw away, the one from our first road trip to Oregon. Hair tied up, no makeup, just Emma. Do you hate me? She asked without looking at me. I sat beside her. The night was cool, quiet. No, I said. She nodded. Sometimes I do. That caught me off guard. She laughed softly. Not the way you think. I hate the version of me that did what I did. I look in the mirror and I don't know how I became her. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. We watched the porch light flicker. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. I used to think we were perfect, she said. And then I started feeling invisible. Not unloved, just unseen. I nodded. I knew that feeling too. We stopped choosing each other. She looked at me then. I want to choose you again, every day, if you'll let me. And I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But belief doesn't grow back overnight. It has to be planted, watered, waited on. And I wasn't sure if my soil could hold anything anymore. That night, I stood in our bedroom doorway, watching her sleep. I remembered the first time I saw her. 22, barefoot in a bookstore, reading the last page of a novel before buying it. She looked up, caught me staring, and smiled like she'd known me forever. That version of her still lived inside this woman, buried beneath the weight of every lie, every kiss that wasn't mine. And I didn't know if I could dig that far to find her again. The next morning, I packed a bag. Just one. A few clothes. My journal. The photo from Venice. I didn't leave a note. When Emma came into the kitchen and saw me holding the bag, she didn't cry. She just stood there. Still. I need time, I said. She nodded. Eyes glassy, but steady. I'll wait, she whispered. I believed her. But I didn't know if I'd come back. The silence of the guest house was louder than any argument we never had. It sat behind my brother's property, tucked under pine trees that whistled when the wind came through just right. A converted barn, one bedroom, barely enough space for anything but thinking. And that's what I did hour after hour, think. Not just about her, about me, who I was when we met, who I became with her, who I let myself turn into, just to hold onto something that was already slipping away. Sometimes losing someone shows you how lost you already were. I stayed for 10 days. Emma didn't call. She texted once, "I hope you're okay. I'm here if you want to talk." I didn't reply, not because I wanted to punish her, but because I needed the silence to feel mine. On the 5th night, I took a walk at midnight. No streetlights, just stars and the crunch of gravel under my boots. I cried for the first time, not because of the betrayal, not because she chose him, because I finally let go of the version of our life I'd been clinging to, and it broke me open. On the 7th day, I saw our daughter. Emma dropped her off at my brother's place. Didn't come in. Our little girl ran to me, arms wide, voice bright. I held her longer than usual. She smelled like strawberries and sunshine and everything I thought I'd lost. "Mommy says you're on a trip," she said. "I am," I said. "Will you come home soon?" I didn't answer. She didn't push. Children always know more than they let on. That night, after she fell asleep on the couch beside me, I wrote in my journal, "I don't know if I can forgive her, but I do know I want to be a father she's proud of, no matter what that means." On the 10th day, I went home. The house was quiet when I walked in. Clean, like she was waiting. Emma sat at the kitchen table, a cup of tea in front of her. No makeup, no mask. She stood when she saw me, didn't smile, didn't cry, just waited. "I'm not here to forget," I said. She nodded. "I'm not here to erase it." Another nod. "I'm here because I realized something." She finally spoke. "What?" "That forgiveness isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's about choosing what happens next." Silence. "I don't know if I can be your husband yet," I said, "but I'd like to try being your friend again, if that's something you want too." She covered her mouth. One sob slipped through. "I do," she said. We didn't hug. We didn't kiss. We just sat down, across from each other. Two people trying to unlearn the damage. Not rewrite the story, but maybe, just maybe, start a new chapter. One where truth isn't a weapon, and silence isn't a punishment. Healing didn't feel like a movie montage. It felt like folding laundry beside someone you used to know. Emma and I began spending time together again. Slowly, carefully. Not as husband and wife. Just people, parents, survivors of a story neither of us wanted to write. We didn't talk about Daniel. Not because it didn't matter, but because everything that needed to be said had already been spoken in silence. In distance. In tears neither of us saw, but both of us caused. Sometimes the apology is in the effort. We took our daughter to the lake one weekend. Just a day trip. Emma packed sandwiches. I brought old towels and the folding chairs we hadn't used since before the world cracked. We didn't touch, but when our daughter ran into the water and called to both of us, we went. Together, waiting in side by side, her hands in ours. And for a moment it felt like something real. Not the past, not the illusion, just now. That night, Emma asked if I was sleeping better. "A little," I said. She nodded. "Me too." I could tell she wanted to ask more. She didn't. She'd learned. I had too. We couldn't force healing, but we could respect the space it needed to happen. A few weeks later, we sat on the porch. The air was cool. Our daughter was asleep. Emma handed me something. Her wedding ring. "I took it off the day you left," she said. Not because I stopped loving you, because I didn't want to wear it without meaning. I looked at it in my hand. It still had the tiny scratch from when she dropped it in the sink on our second anniversary. She took a breath. I'm not asking for anything. Not today. I just wanted you to have it. I closed my fingers around it. Didn't speak. Didn't need to. The next morning, I opened my journal. Wrote one line. We are not who we were, but maybe that's okay. Then I closed it. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I needed to write anything more. I still don't know how this story ends. Maybe we find our way back. Maybe we just become better co-parents. Maybe we drift again. Slowly, kindly this time. But I know who I am now. Not the man begging for truth. Not the ghost pretending everything's fine. Just a man who learned that even shattered glass can still reflect light. And sometimes that's enough.